So my name is Greg. I am manager of cloud engineering and DevOps at uShip. I have 15 years experience in the dev web space, 7 of which have been all cloud focused. I've been all up and down from working as a server management in a data center for the funeral industry, doing IT, webmaster, and web developer for power systems and dental CAD. I was a software engineer for both the gaming industry as well as the fashion industry. And then I've been in DevOps and site reliability in both ed tech with David and Mark and Aaron, as well as logistics where I'm at now. So uShip, I was hired on with their efforts to help move their monolith from a co-located infrastructure into the cloud, and also have that experience of bringing DevOps as a culture. Progressed from just a single DevOps to engineer to a cloud leader, and then ended up getting our migration done in a 2-year time period, but the actual downtime was only about 6 hours on a Friday night. So we moved our whole entire stack in one evening. Wasn't that long. So, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So if you didn't see that coming, let's go ahead and start.
Woo! Love Star Wars.
So what happens when an infrastructure team's finished the job that they're hired for? So a long time ago, cue the John Williams music. So when I originally started at uShip, the scope of the DevOps team was they were in charge of the CI/CD pipeline for the monolith. They inherited a large application with only tribal knowledge. You know, we've probably heard this story about 100 times where you come to a new job and there's no documentation and everything's there. They managed the application configuration, and we managed all the infrastructure for the supporting products, CDN, APM, logging, etc. It was all managed really by one team. So to kind of go further down that road, the business decided that for the DevOps team to still support the engineering team as a single source, so they siloed out the team and turned it into the cloud engineering team. And we were named Bespin. You know, Star Wars, that's an inside joke. And our team scope had changed drastically. Our new thing was now to use newer tooling and development paradigms to modernize the platform and get it to the cloud. So in essence, we became a tiger team. And it was very little support to the business with this real big role of trying to get to the cloud. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, just to keep kind of drawing the picture, the developers became the Wild West. They decide, production must go on. We have to push new products out. We still have to support that. But they decided from a monolith, they wanted to adopt microservices. They wanted to do micro front ends. They wanted to push out Lambdas. They wanted to support Polyglot. Originally, we were all complete .NET source, and now we were moving into doing React, Node, .NET Core, Python, React Native, which is different than React because that's actually for mobile specific. And it was almost like a development revolution. They wanted to be empowered with all this new and cool toys. Well, what we've noticed is every time the cloud engineering team in their milestones, every time we did something new, they got a new toy. And they were able to actually empower themselves to take some of that responsibility. So we would build out the VPCs using Jenkins and Terraform. They can now have their Lambdas, and they can support their Lambdas to talk back to the monolith. We created Jenkins. They learned Groovy and started making their own pipelines. We had Artifactory. Teams now had a place to store their NPM packages. We used Vault and AWS SSM. Teams now could manage their own configs. And then with Okta, we had a single sign-in. So now everybody didn't have to manage all the different logins to all these different tools. One set, we kept it very simple so we could still focus on the migration. So in essence, DevOps is a culture. I mean, We did it. Yeah. But what did that do to the DevOps team? Well, that completely killed our scope. We weren't in charge of CI/CD. That was all on the teams now. They've been building all their pipelines for all these new projects and new microservices. You know, the inheriting this large monolith, well, now we know the monolith. We've had our hands in the monolith. We've documented the monolith. We've now shared out that knowledge. Well, managing application configs, again, that's all on the teams again. We've now been able to empower the teams to take on these roles and responsibilities. And what we found out was they wanted it. They want control of building their apps. And then even the managing, like the CDN, APM, teams wanted that ability. And Instana didn't come to us because of me. Instana came to us because our DevOps guild was having a talk saying we need APM. And we're like, okay, well, I know a few, somebody else will do a few. And that's how that conversation started. It didn't start from a single team. It was an org-wide thing. So what happens to the infrastructure team now? What do I do, you know, now that I don't manage infrastructure? I mean, I manage the monolith, but that's legacy. And eventually we're going to kill that off in 2 to 3 years. What happens to the team that built all these things that they want to move on? So that led to the problem. So how did we swing the pendulum? That's where I came in and started saying, all right, well, now that we're in the cloud, there's a new subset of problems. Forget subset, the new vast amount of problems. You know, our current incident alerting was horrible. It's still horrible because we were only alerting on the exceptions of the monolith. Well, now we have microservice A, microservice B. We had a disparate system, and we didn't have the alerting set up and the the visibility on how all these tools interconnect and talk to each other. Right now, our mean time resolution is horrible. It's a day. I actually looked this up as I was doing this, like, this is not good. This is a new KPI now that we can start to work towards. No one has a view of how all the subservices work. You know, Team A may know how their new fine shipments may work with the main monolith, but nobody else knows how to talk back to that, and vice versa. Currently, our on-call doesn't scale because it was built for a monolith. It wasn't built for microservices. So everybody was on call all the time. And then, you know, we actually started to get a little bit more direction from executive leadership, where it's like, we want to focus on security, we want to focus on scalability, we want to focus on performance. Well, now I have some tangible things that can solve this problem. And, you know, I worked with the team on this, and we defined a new scope. And said from now on, this team, whatever we're going to work on, is going to be focusing on the scalability and reliability of our service. We're going to discover and define monitoring metrics with the teams. We're going to work more with the teams. We're going to identify and prioritize security issues in code. We're going to try to figure out how to create security testing while in the pipeline. By the way, we do automated or full CI/CD. We deploy 5 to 7 times a day. We have full automated tests. So that whole pipeline and maturity is already there. So now it's just time to add some extra little tweaks that's missing, like security checks. Education. So we learned that from our cloud engineering experience, that sometimes all these teams need is a little bit of tweaking and education to know or get the idea. Oh yeah, we need to be reliable. We need to make this reliable. How do we make this reliable? And educating, you know, on different tooling. What can we use? Give the teams a little bit more autonomy so they can, like, all right, I want to work with GitHub Actions. This team wants to work with this. Well, how do we support that still within a good budgetary and being common sense? So we still have a team to usher that. So, you know, this all leads to, you know, instead of being cloud engineering, we evolved to site reliability. And, you know, basically, we were Bestman civil engineers, and now we're reliability Jedis.
Oh,
Thanks. So, and this is kind of the matrix that I actually proposed to my engineering staff or leadership that says, where it used to be this DevOps circle was out here, and it was informing this circle, and this was a dev team, the developer and the QA. Now we said, okay, now we're going to incorporate this more closely. With the developer and the SRE, they're going to work together to get development pipelines together. They're going to work together with infrastructure decisions, and even working with the on-call and incident resolution. With our QA team, well, there's this whole entire concept of chaos testing that even our QA manager wants to go towards. So an infrastructure or a site reliability team needs to help that and force that work, so we have an environment so we can do that against that. So we can turn off things and see what happens. So we're going to support QA in that. And then all together, we're still going to be focusing on creating automated tests for performance and security testing. So this was the new structure that we're working towards. We're close to there. So how does that work? So how does it work today? I'm really, in this part, is going to talk more about the tooling. Of course, we're going to talk first off about APM. Instana has now been able to allow us to explain what SLI or service level indicators are to our developers and to our product managers. And then together with latency, error counts, and a few other metrics, I can't even think on top of my head right now. But we're allowed now to create these indicators and objectives for the team, so we can actually start to build better alerting. And so that we're using the APM where we didn't have that visibility. And then as far as remediation goes, I can look, this happened in a meeting yesterday. We had an alert go off. Our SRE fireman checks like, all right, let's go see in Instana what's going on. I looked at the stack trace. Oh, that's coming from one of our third-party services, which is owned by this team. We sent the alert off to the team, and then that notified the business, hey, by the way, our third party is having some issues. And there we go. It was a lot quicker than, oh my God, hair's on fire, alerts are going off, because now we have a tool that can prove what's happening. We're more data-driven this way. Another piece to this, for incident management, we decided to migrate from VictorOps to PagerDuty. PagerDuty integrates with a lot of systems very easily, where VictorOps doesn't have that nice handshake of an integration. And it's allowing us to actually measure our mean time to resolution, not only as on a holistic level, but on a service by service level. So now we can actually localize to a certain team that has ownership of certain microservices. Hey, by the way, did you know your service is going off? Maybe we need to double check your alerting. Maybe we need to make sure and fine tune those alerts to make sure they're not going off as much. Or is it the right alert? Are we finding off the right service level objective that says this is going off? We've already had this in place, but we're kind of utilizing a little bit more centralized logging. We have the elk stack. We just purchased it through Elastic. But we use this for many different things. Actually, this example is for our habitat logs. This is how we do our user data, so that when a new instance comes up, we know without actually looking at the server what happened when it came up, and we don't have to diagnose the servers as they come in and out of rotation. That's just one of the examples. This has just been empowered by all this. And finally, some of the new things that we've been starting to do to actually create whole holistic pictures from a site reliability is use Grafana to have all these talk. So Grafana has a plugin for Instana, has a plugin for CloudWatch, has a plugin for Elasticsearch, has a plugin for PagerDuty. So actually, even in this back rotation here, this was built by one of my dev teams. And they were saying, all right, I want to get my error rate, and see these little codes right here? That's coming from PagerDuty. So now I could see a high error rate. Oh, that dinged an alarm. I know that my alert is working correctly. So they're actually being able to fine tune their alerting based off their data and make sure that they're also hitting their indicators of latency on their service. And then also allowing us from a more KPI-driven state in this section where we actually can see, hey, so this is what our customers are seeing from from our API. Let's make sure that we're hitting our SLO for our latency at 500 milliseconds. By the way, we also have a canary out here, so we're making sure that we have an SLA of 5 seconds. So we're pulling data from our canary from CloudWatch to make sure that from a user perspective or simulated, we know what we're hitting. So that's all built based off this new tool set and this new idea that instead of being focused on infrastructure and delivering the service, now we're talking about how we're collecting metrics and displaying them and making more reliable service. So in conclusion, it's a big thing. DevOps as a culture is highly achievable. It's by changing how a DevOps team provides service to a development org. Instead of a DevOps team being very closed off and being siloed and saying, you guys can't do this. This is our job. We should be open as operators to say, hey, all right, what can we empower you to do today? One of my mentors at Macmillan actually gave me some great advice. You should always be working yourself out of a job, as our field, and that's what we should be doing. So we just evolved and picked a new job. That was fun. And the other thing is, moving to the cloud can fix many monolithic issues. It can break barriers. It can empower your devs to do a lot of upgrades and create an innovation. But it opens up a Pandora's box of new issues. And sometimes an operating team needs to be nimble enough to change and be focused based off the needs and the stakeholders to go from operators or DevOps to site reliability to a platform team to a production team like what Facebook has. That's all I got. Thank you.